Welcome to the Coach Dave Love podcast, where basketball's best meet the science behind skill. Join me, NBA shooting coach Dave Love, and host Matt Robertson as we unpack biomechanics, motor learning, and research-driven insights shaping the future of basketball shooting development.
Welcome to the Coach Dave Love podcast. I am your host, Matt Robertson, and with me, as always, NBA shooting coach Dave Love. Dave, tell me about your master's program. How's it going?
It's great. I said to my daughter today in the car, I don't even always know that I can articulate what I'm learning at this point, where there's so many different little things that some of them I'm very aware of. Other things that maybe you're seeing at a different perspective on, and it's all, I'm at that phase where it's still a jumbled mess that I haven't self-organized yet. And,
Nice.
but I had a great, I had a great moment, where, that kind of caused me a little reflection on an answer that I gave a couple of podcasts ago, where you talked about somebody that came into your, that you met out in the wild, that was sort of saying about the podcast, it gets a little, I forget the phrasing they use, but something along the lines of it gets a little in the weeds. Do you remember that?
Yeah, we get a little in the mix, just a little too much.
Yeah, and I push back to say, well, that is kind of the difference between. Anyway, I push back. And I didn't necessarily love that I pushed back, as I kind of reflected over the next week or two. And then in my Master's of Skill Acquisition course, the professor on one of the lectures was talking about, we're going through the differences between discrete, serial and continuous skills, and open skills and closed skills, and like just assigning different terms to all these different ways that we can look at at the skills that we're teaching. And then he made a great point to say, like, you can be a good coach without knowing these terms and what they are and what they mean. But understanding them just gives you an opportunity to reflect on what it is that your skill involves, or how it relates to the rest of the game, that may inspire some thought. And I thought, that was a great way of putting, a more eloquent way of putting the point that I tried to make a couple of weeks ago. And so, yeah, but thanks for asking. The course has been a lot, but it's been really, really good. And I'm looking forward to kind of seeing what I learn over the next, basically still 2 years.
I guess that's why he's got the PhD, right? That's the difference between you and him right now.
Yeah, and it's funny, like they talk about like the arc of learning, or these graphics that you see where when you start off doing something you think you know, and then you realize how much you don't know, and then you end up back on the other side where you actually now do. No, I've felt like I had taken these massive steps forward over the last 5 years, and I still believe that to be true. But I'm having a lot of moments where I'm going, oh man, there's certain things I'm not quite getting totally right. I'll talk about one of them in a second, and then some where you're just like, oh, I don't necessarily know that I have this understanding at a PhD level, which. I don't fault myself for that, because I don't even have a master's yet. But one of the things, like simple example, I keep referencing block practice when really what I need is constant practice, or in my head, block constant practice. And I've learned that that's very common to get those two terms mixed up. But so I just want to acknowledge, like, as we've tried to do throughout the whole podcast, that I'm far from an expert in these, but working hard to become educated, and this getting things wrong is part of the process.
I won't lie, you use 6 terms in your description that I don't understand, and so I will be asking you questions about them as we go. And that's okay. Like your learning is
Do you
my learning.
remember? Do you remember one of the six? Can I test my knowledge?
Oh, you were talking about the difference between continuous learning and other kinds of practice, and
Oh,
again, they're gone.
discrete skills, serial skills,
Got it.
and continuous skills. So, okay, a discrete skill is a skill that is relatively short with a defined beginning and end. Think a golf swing. That's a discrete skill. A serial skill is something that encompasses many skills, like dance. And a continuous skill would be something like swimming, where it's maybe a discrete skill repeated over and over and over again, or dribbling a soccer ball.
Mm.
Uh, but but then in our discussion, we are just talking about how the lines between these different things are muddied, and that is dribbling a soccer ball really is it really a continuous skill when everything each touch is slightly different, or is it a serial skill at that point? And so it again, it was just part of that discussion about um, when we assign a name to something, then it opens up conversation that there's an opportunity for reflection on understanding our skill better, or maybe how we're teaching it.
And I assume that each one of those categories is probably learned best in a different way or taught best in a different way. And yeah, buddy, I'm excited to be sort of again alongside you in this journey, but also excited that I'm not in the mud doing the papers and the reading and all of that. Because, buddy, I got nothing.
Yeah. I've discovered that waking up at 3 a.m. to
Oh,
take each lecture live was a first week sort of thing, and not sustainable. And um, yeah, so I'm watching them uh, pre- previously recorded, and uh, but yeah, it's been a great learning experience thus far, and I'm barely into it.
love to hear that, man. Can't wait to be alongside you for the growth. Little bit of housekeeping before we get into the meat of the pod. I just want to put another plug out for listener questions. Moving forward this season, it's something we feel really strongly about, as we want to hear from the people, by the people. And you can send a voice note to podcast@coachdavelove.com. Include your name, where you live, what level you're coaching, and a question that you think applies to as many other people as possible, and we want to answer them. We want to play your clip and answer it on the air. I think that's an awesome little shtick or gimmick, and I think will be really helpful to hear what the people really want to hear about.
I love it. Looking forward to those.
Dave, the dip, controversial topic today, or maybe not
Yeah,
controversial, but definitely opinions sort of diverge on this.
yeah, and I can't even remember. Did we go into the dip at all in an episode in season one?
The synopsis was as much as necessary, as little as possible, was at the time sort of, I think, what we settled on. And I think you have some more research, some more math that it makes the problem more complicated, but at least we can have a good look at the trade-offs, what it looks like.
Yeah, and I'm going to work really hard to keep this one as simple as I can, because reflecting on that, the touch episode, part of me does worry that we got a little too in the weeds on that one, but that or a lot too in the weeds. But different episodes are going to appeal to different people in different ways, and so this one I want to really try and make sure that we do keep it as simple as we can on the podcast. But if you want to get more into like the math, as Matt referenced, then go to the blog. You can look in the show notes, and I'll link to the blog that I wrote that gives some evidence on that. But yeah, so let me teach you a little bit about the dip, as though you have no idea what I'm talking about, and then we'll evolve the conversation as we go. So The dip is that we'll make sure we all know what we're talking about is catching the ball wherever a shooter catches it, bringing the ball down to their waist, dipping the ball down to their waist, and then bringing it back up through the shooting motion. And I think if we were to have gone back 30 years ago, the conventional wisdom would have been from coaches, don't dip the basketball. And like I said to you earlier in our preamble before we started the show, kind of the same way that I feel like coaches 30 years ago would have said, don't take a negative step, don't step backwards to go forwards. And I feel like on both of these topics, the conventional wisdom has almost flipped to the other side, where now the argument seems to be, at least from what I see, generally, you should dip the basketball. And the answer that I'm trying to propose through this topic is, and get ready, we haven't said this phrase in a little while, Maddie, it depends.
It depends.
So what does it depend on? I need to make sure that we understand the nuances and the trade-offs in this particular habit. Number one, the trade-off in dipping the basketball, or the one perspective in dipping the basketball is it creates a longer motion, and that longer motion allows for more consistent power. It allows for more power and more consistent power. Okay, so you got to look.
So when you say consistent power, are you just talking about from a rep to rep perspective, or from start to finish of the shot, like over the course of a number of shots, or just through the one shot?
More the start to finish. So this is something that we're going to come back to a couple of different times. So let me explain it now. Let's imagine you dip the basketball and you're a 6'6" player. You dip the ball down to your waist, and we'll say that gets to around 3 feet off the ground, 3 feet in height off the ground. And then you lift it up and you release it from your hand at around 8 feet off the ground. You've now got a 5-foot shooting motion. You've got 5 feet worth of time to get the ball up to a very specific speed and angle, depending on your distance and the release height. So going back to the C curve that we talked about a couple of episodes ago, every shot is going to have that window of the correct amount of or the correct relationship between arc and velocity depending on the release height and the distance. And so we need to be able to hit, if I'm 22 feet out and I'm 6 foot tall, releasing from around, and we'll say, I don't know, I've got short arms, so maybe my release height is only like 7 foot, 7'3", to pick a number. I'm 22 feet away, and the ball's going to be released from 7'3", and I know I typically release it at about a 50 whatever degree launch angle. Those are the habits that I'm used to. I better get the ball traveling. I think it's probably going to be around 25 feet per second. Okay, and if I get it up to 27 feet per second, that thing's clanking off the backboard. And if I only get it up to 23 feet per second, then there's no sound at all. That thing airballed. So I've got to get a very specific speed, and that 5-foot window allows me more time to adjust if I had to lift the ball really quickly and I need to slow it down, or I didn't get the ball lifting quickly enough and I need to accelerate a little bit more to get it up to that speed. That 5-foot window, because I dipped the basketball, gives me more room to make those adjustments. Okay, so that'll be one. Okay, now the next thing would be that longer motion, unfortunately, takes more time. Okay. And so no matter what we do, if you catch the ball at, uh, let's say 5 feet in height, you have to drop it down to 3 feet. Then you have to pass back through 5 feet again to get to your 8 foot release. You now have 7 feet that the ball had to cover. And but if somebody was able to not dip the basketball, then they would have been able to go from 5 to 8 feet. And so they would have been able to do that faster. And in some ways, that's an advantage, but it comes with these trade-offs. That added power allows the longer path, the dipped shot, allows players more time to adjust, like we talked about, allows more room for them to generate power, but it takes more time. And the shorter motion, it takes less time, but you've got less room to generate the necessary power. And some people or different situations will have different constraints on them that call for different solutions.
I I know we talk about this a lot, the similarities between the golf swing and jump shot. And when I think about, again, I've got a long arms, I have a long sort of loping. My take on that was always, oh, I have way more room for error, or way more room to make mistakes, or way more distance to travel, time to make mistakes in. Is this a similar principle when it comes to the dips? You have more time to adjust, but also more room to make mistakes?
Yeah, you have a longer motion to control as well. And that's absolutely a part of it that we haven't talked about. And so this is the point being, and thank you for sharing that. This is a far more nuanced answer than the answer is black or it's white. And we used to think it was black, but now we think it's white. No, 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 no. It's one of the shades of gray. And which shade of gray is it? It depends. It depends on the situation that each player is in, and it depends on each player shooting the basketball. So, if you'll allow me, I want to go into like different ages of play. We're just going to pick two different groups and kind of talk about the dip for those age groups, young players, and I'm talking about definitely under the age of 15. I could probably even argue under the age of 17. So the younger the players are, the more this applies to them. They probably should be dipping the basketball. We almost should be giving the black or white answer of yes, I want you to dip the basketball because they have an individual constraint, each one of them, a
Mm.
lack of physical power that has shaped every single habit that they have to this point. Like everything that they do in shooting a basketball has been built around the individual constraint of my little itty bitty body doesn't generate very much force. And I really like shooting threes. And so I'm going to do all these negative habits to get the ball up to the rim from the 3 point line. And many of those habits don't contribute to makes. They contribute to misses, but whatever.
Little Jimmy's got the two-handed release, the full-on leg kick, the low set point, you name it, little Jimmy's got it, right?
Yeah, all of those things together. Those people, we cannot limit their physical power because they already don't have enough. So we've got to give them the, or we've got to at least have understanding they need to dip the basketball, especially from distance. We also then need to understand that coin has another side, and it means that they won't be able to get a shot off quickly. But thankfully, in U12 basketball, the defense tends to not be very good. So we can get away with it. We can get away with the lack of speed because we have wiggle room in that way, but we can't get around the a lack of power because that's going to be across the board for every single player.
Here's where the regular coaches say, well, Dave, you should tell them they shouldn't be shooting those shots anyway. You know,
Good. You're great. And I'm glad that you make that point. So that's kind of uh, the idea that we should only be shooting in development. We should only be shooting perfect shots. We should only be shooting shots in the middle of the sandbox. And yes, there that is going to give you a little more room to how do I want to phrase this? That is going to help in one way, but you're limiting players' exploration at a time in their lives where they should be exploring habits as much as possible. And limiting them by saying, like, no, only shoot the perfect shots. Don't, like, number one, it's not realistic. As soon as you turn your back, they're going to be shooting them anyways. And then we should actually be encouraging the appropriate amount of exploration as opposed to restricting all exploration.
Fair enough. And I kind of am kidding as the crusty old coach, but I just know that there's going to be, I shouldn't say crusty old coach, and then a segment of our population is going to feel that way. It's the get off my lawn comment, for the kids.
Yeah, and then to be fair, you've teased me about being the get off my lawn guy. So we all have elements of all these personalities in us, and I'm certainly no exception to that rule. So young players dip the basketball. Older players no longer have, in theory, if I can make a generalization, they no longer have the same individual constraint of lack of physical strength. They theoretically, most of them probably do have more of that. And so there is a possibility for us to expand the kind of the amount they can explore the sandbox. And so giving them the tool of being able to not have to dip the basketball is going to be an advantage, is going to allow them to adapt to the constraints of a game that will occur on occasion. All the time? Probably not. On occasion? Absolutely. And especially our better shooters who are keyed on defensively, and the opposing team really makes an effort to limit their shooting opportunities. We want to give them more opportunities to shoot where they have a chance to be successful. So we should be working, especially with older, better shooters, on expanding their spot in the sandbox and giving them that tool of, can you now effectively shoot the basketball without having to dip the ball? And if you look at guys, like, there are guys that are now routinely using this little trick, like the Duncan Robinsons and Devin Booker. I've seen it. Those two guys jump out as, they have shot some shots where it's catch it at the forehead and take it up from there. And most of us aren't physically strong enough to be able to do it, or talented enough to be able to pull it off, but they are. And so why would we give them the black or white answer that they shouldn't be doing that? So that'll be the big points that I want coaches to make sure we understand, that the correct answer is not black or white. It's probably a version of it depends.
Awesome. Anything you want to cover before we go into our commercial break and something a little kind of practical in the lines of this?
No, I think that'll cover it. Let's take a little quick break and come back after this. Coaches, if you want to keep getting better at teaching shooting, I've created a free shooting newsletter just for you. Inside, I break down the habits and principles that I teach to NBA players. Concepts like the sandbox analogy, positive and negative energy, shot metrics, and how to actually design drills that transfer to games. Every email is designed to help you see shooting differently so that you can cut through the noise, challenge old assumptions, and give your players a real advantage. I've consulted with NBA teams, NCAA programs, national federations, and youth organizations around the world. And the insights I share in the newsletter are the same ones I share with them. If you're not on it, you're simply missing out on tools that other coaches are already using to develop their shooters. Sign up today on CoachDaveLove.com and start learning the skills to help your players unlock their potential.
Dave, welcome back. As we often do in this podcast, it's time for our favorite shtick. This is the thought clock gimmick. Sorry, our favorite gimmick.
No, it's a shtick.
It's a
gimmick. You always get this backwards, and it makes me, you're way up in your head about just like every time I meet a Kristen, like I start thinking, which one was it? Oh, I thought it was that, and then I get it wrong. It's a shtick. It's not a gimmick. A gimmick is bad. A shtick is just a shtick.
I think the shtick gimmick is becoming a gimmick for me, and I apologize. This is an after timeout. Coming out of a timeout, we're going to put 24 up on the thought clock in my office, and Dave, you're going to give a concise look at what we talked about in the last segment.
The debate about whether we should dip the basketball has no black or white answer. It is a case-by-case basis, and we should be, as coaches, understanding the individual constraints of the players, but then also guiding exploration around other solutions for the players that are capable of them.
That we got, we ran off a screen, we got a swing, banged it from the corner. Great job by you. Really, really good. One of the best.
I feel like that was one of my best ones, and I was about a half sentence away from wrapping that up, thinking like, don't screw this up, don't add more, not one more pass, we're getting an open look here. I got really nervous towards the end of that.
You're on the fairway on 18, just put it near the green. So, okay, I have a few questions that I wanted to ask you, and I'm glad that you're kind of have you captive in this forum for this. When you suggested this topic today, it kind of harkened back to this anecdotal study I read a little while ago. It might have been a year or so ago, of this coach in the NBA who looked at like 30,000 shots or a giant number of shots and said, well, really, there was only like 7 that were non-dip. So does everybody just dip the ball anyway? Is that the deal?
Yeah, I think the point of that informal study that was done by a young coach, and good for them for doing it. The point that they're trying to make is that old school coaches will say, don't dip the basketball. And in all of these shots that I watched, the player didn't dip the basketball this outrageously small number of times. And I felt like their point was on the opposite side of the continuum, where they were saying like, only dip the basketball. And I worried that was the advice that they're giving, and what the point that I tried to make in rebuttal was, well, hold on a second. You've only factored in the shots that got off. You have a survivorship bias, and so you didn't factor in all of the shots that a player wanted to shoot but wasn't able to shoot because they had to dip the basketball. If we start to factor in those and start to say like, you should have dipped the ball, or you should have gone straight up here and you would have been able to get the shot off, or all the shots that got blocked because someone had to dip the basketball, like those weren't counted. And so when we include those, then we start to see maybe there is no black or white answer, and that they're, again, case by case basis. It depends. It depends on the player, and it depends on each individual shot.
It is a good transition to the next question, because you're talking about the windows getting smaller. You're working at the highest level where these windows are, if you're watching the video, holding my fingers really close together, these windows are so tiny to get these shots off. And in the Kevin Pangos pod, we kind of talked about finding solutions that work for you, and how sometimes those solutions have to change to get more efficient as you kind of rise up the ranks. Like, is it basically like as much dip as you can get away with? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I liked what you said earlier from the previous pod on this topic. Like the line that I tend to give is as much as necessary and as little as possible. How much should you dip the basketball? Well, how much force do you need, and how low does it need to start in order for you to generate that amount of force? How much time do you have, and how quickly does it need to get off before the defender is going to block the shot? Um, and as we get older, theoretically, we're getting better, and definitely, as you mentioned, the windows are getting smaller. And so we're probably going to be erring back towards geez, if you can get away with less dip, then please do so. Uh, that we need to find a more efficient motion.
So my next question, I don't want to get too far into the weeds with this. So it, listeners, if you're interested in the blog, there is a number of math problems relating to the physics of the dip and how the how the plus minus degrees of differences when you're trying to get a shot off in a short window and generate power in a short window versus a long window. If you're interested in that, please go check it out because it is super interesting, and I wish I could eloquently talk about it, but because it is quite in the weeds, I will sort of blow by it a little. But just, Dave, talk about the challenges. So in this no dip universe where I can catch the ball at my chest and just get it off from there, what are the difficulties associated with that, just from a logical, like a practical standpoint?
Yeah, so let's imagine somebody that like a LeBron James size individual who has no issue with the physical strength uh, aspect of this, can catch the ball at their forehead when they're 24 feet away from the basket, and is capable in the next 2 feet of getting the ball up to the amount of force needed when the ball releases from their hand. Um, we're not robots, so we are going to make mistakes. And uh, when you miss the whatever force, the speed that you intended to hit, the angle that you intended to shoot at, the kind of backspin that you intended to put on the basketball. When you miss by a small amount, let's say like 2%, you shot the ball 2% higher than you missed, it ends up being a lot more uh, variability on the other end at the basket when you have to compress all of that into a 2 foot release. So even though you're strong enough to be able to do it, uh, it became harder to do it well and required a more precise shot. So this is like another great example of why, yeah, you might be physically strong enough to do it, but that doesn't mean that I want weaker shooters who are physically strong enough to not dip the basketball to do. This would be an argument for their rhythm. And I don't like using that word. I use that word very, very infrequently because I believe good shooters should have multiple rhythms, not a single. But a weaker shooter doesn't yet have a stabilized rhythm. So I'm going to introduce more variability by giving them a completely different motor pattern. Plus, within that new motor pattern, with the short motion, give them more variability to try and control because of the variances. It's a challenge, and again, I don't know that I articulated this very well, but yeah, if you're spreading out the shot over the 5 foot shooting motion, the little discrepancies between shots aren't actually going to be as big as when you try and compress that over a 2 foot shooting motion.
I do remember you saying to me, I use the word rhythm quite infrequently because I don't think it means anything, or some such version of that.
Yeah, I think it's just it's made up. He has great rhythm. What was that like? What does that mean? Like, and I think it means a different thing to a different person. Is just sort of that thing that we say when we don't really know what we're saying.
Mm.
And to me, like, okay, is it good sequencing? Are you sequencing your body? Are you using your lower body and then like are the joints extending in the correct sequence? Um, or is it that your way of describing um, a very stable motor pattern, um, like a very strong habit, whether it's functional or not, whether it leads to success or not? And there can be people that have great rhythm that doesn't work, and people that Steph Curry, I would argue, has multiple different rhythms, but is pretty good at all of them. And so, does it? Yeah, I just go back to like, does this word really mean anything?
It's funny. I kind of equate it to tempo in the golf swing is how I kind of visualize it. But the way you describe it, that's only one part of this ping when we say that word. That's interesting.
Can I go off on a crazy tangent that has
Please,
nothing to do with anything?
please.
We haven't. We've done related tangents, but we have not done unrelated tangents in a while. The Ryder Cup was just this past weekend. Did you watch much or any of it?
A
Oh,
little
you were
bit,
in
not
Toronto
much.
with your day. Okay.
Yeah.
I hate Bryson DeChambeau's golf swing for a multitude of different reasons, and nothing to say against him as a person or as a golfer. I just don't like the way it doesn't suit my eye, and it's just like it's everything that I worry that I do poorly in my golf swing. I feel like he does, but he does it well, and it just like I feel like it's the I really like the look of a long, slow backswing and then the smooth acceleration. And I feel like he's quick back, quick through. And it just looks like a stabbing motion to me that I just do not like. And so when you said tempo, for whatever reason, Bryson DeChambeau's golf swing jumped into my mind, and I had to choke back a little bit, puke in
Listen,
my mouth.
I get it. So to bring us back, there's a good tangent here. I played professional basketball with a guy named Daryl Wong. Shout out Wong, one of my favorite teammates of all time. Also one of the best shooters that I've ever played with. However, many opponents and some teammates would always yell, stuff's broken. Like he had a funky shooting motion. If you're watching the video, a little Larry Birdie and the elbows out, we're back over the head, but the finish is clean. To borrow some shot metrics parlance, like the ball is moving in a straight line at the finish. It just funky solution to get there. So you know what? Like sometimes I would look at that and be like, man, how far am I hanging my elbow to my jumper? Is that, so this is my attempt to sort of bring us back to the basketball side of things, but I get what you're saying.
I worry that I worry that all of our listeners are your former teammates, that we don't actually have any unique listeners. Just the dozens of people are actually just your friends.
Listen,
my
first year playing pro, we ran through so many players. There must have been 45 guys. That could be the entire listener base. It's great stuff.
Well, and maybe your wife is just listening 567 times. I don't know.
A couple of our episodes have 1,000 listens on Spotify, and that doesn't account for YouTube and Apple. I think we're doing okay. Dave, let's take another break. I want to come back with a quick hammer action, and then we'll call it a night.
If you or a player you coach want to truly understand what's happening in the shot, I offer a video shot analysis that brings NBA-level feedback right to you. No matter where in the world you live, you can upload a simple video from your phone and I'll return a detailed breakdown, 10 minutes or more, walking you through your mechanics as if we were sitting together side by side. You'll hear my voice as I slow down the video, zoom in, draw on the screen, and point out the specific habits that are helping or holding back your shot. Then I'll help you identify the single most important idea to focus on and recommend a shot development system tailored to your needs. This is the same process I've used with NBA players, NCAA programs, and national federations, now available to anyone who wants to unlock their potential as a shooter. Don't leave your shot to chance. Go to CoachDaveLove.com/store and get your video shot analysis today.
Andrew from Moncton.
Okay. Andrew, that's awesome. Number one, thank you for submitting the question, and yeah, I'm excited to incorporate this within the podcast. So, Matt, help me out. I've already missed the first part. I know he wants to know about what it's like to, or when I just sort of decided to make the jump full time. So,
talk about one-man basketball business. You are a basketball enterprise into yourself. What is that comprised of? What are your revenue streams? How did you decide to run to full-time? Let's go.
Yeah, this was a long, slow evolution that never really felt like I was taking significant steps. And then you every 5 years look back and you go, oh, wow, big significant steps were taken. So I started off just doing lessons for kids in their driveway of my hometown of Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I ran a clinic, a single 2-hour shooting clinic that was an hour worth of filler, if I'm being totally honest, and an hour worth of content. And it sold out. And then I ran a second clinic another month or so later, and that was about half full. And then I did another one about a month after that, and that one had 5 people in it. And it was just figuring out how to coach, how I could make money from this, what I enjoyed doing, and trying a whole bunch of different things slowly over time, where it's just like, okay, I'm going to focus on this idea and build this up. This is gaining some traction. I think there's an opportunity to do this. I don't like that as much. One of the things I tried was being a general skills trainer. I don't like this as much. And I stopped doing it. One of the pieces of advice that I got from my mentor was volunteer with the highest level team that you possibly can, and gain that high level experience, even though you don't get paid for it. And so I was a shooting coach for the Calgary Dinos, the University of Calgary Dinos in my hometown for a number of years, and all those things were sort of big steps that didn't necessarily feel big at the time.
Interesting. So as you're sort of like building your skill set and building your curriculum, I guess, for lack of a better term, are you implementing new stuff from clinic to clinic, or are you sort of like, you had your thing, you're like, I'm running with this and this is what I'm doing?
Yeah, I kind of realized that clinics were a more reliable revenue source for me, given the way that I was kind of set up, having a full-time job, not having unlimited time, and having a niche that the clinics were a part of what I was doing. And it was almost like refining a stand-up comedy routine, where it's like, okay, here's my plan going into it. I'm going to have these different teaching segments, and then looking back and at the clinic thinking, oh, that part did not work. Okay, how do I need to change that part? Oh, these other parts really did work, and I got to keep those. And then kind of refining that. And while you're refining that routine, I was also growing in different ways. And then it's okay, now I have new elements to get into this refined routine. Or maybe I'm just a little bored of doing the same thing and I want to just change it up at times, or I don't feel like this segment is working, and just kind of rebooting the routine. And then just looking for other opportunities where I was making reasonable money from a weekend of clinics, but then I had time Monday to Friday when I wasn't at practice with the dinos. And so how do I use that? What can I do? And online resources were becoming a thing back, and this is probably the early teens, 2000 teens, and starting to put together some online resources that became online products for sale, and growing that way.
So you just sort of you hit your main revenue stream, which was the clinics, and you started to expand out into little other pieces that added revenue to the pot. So at what point did you transition to full time? Like how did that look for you?
After my second NBA opportunity in 2009 with the Phoenix Suns, I still had a full-time job, and thankfully I did, because that was a 1 year opportunity. That the gentleman that hired me, Steve Kerr, was not brought back, or did not go back the next year, and so there was no opportunity for a couple more years, and I thought that was the end of my NBA career, and that I had this cool experience. And then the following year was, or a couple of years later, the following job was in Cleveland, and started to realize, oh, wait a second, I might be able to like actually do this. And then it wasn't until my third or fourth year in Orlando where I found some financial stability from the NBA, but certainly no job stability from the NBA, where you can have a job for a year, or you could have a job for 5 years, and who knows? Um, and so exploring those opportunities when they came available, but having the clinics and the online materials to fall back on when I needed to.
So I have two more questions, and one is for the segment of listeners that have big time aspirations and big time dreams. Like, how did that call come for you? Was it a friend of a friend? Was it a job you applied for? Like, how did they loop you into this Phoenix Suns ecosystem?
Yeah, it was my mentor who, if he were able to clone himself 30 times, then at that point, all 30 of those individuals would have been hired by an NBA team. But he was unable to clone himself. And so when teams kind of said to him, like, hey, do you know somebody that's like you? That I was one of the first names that he would mention. And so it really came from an existing relationship. Um, that had started 20 years before. And so that's the answer to the first part of the question. What was the second part, Matt?
Well, it sort of reflects back on what you said, where volunteer at the highest level that you possibly can, because that's how you show people in high places that you're capable and you can do the job. My last question, the last part of the question is, what advice do you have for others? And this is two parts. One, because advice is a general thing. So, Dave, what's like your specific general advice? And the second piece is, for me, it's become a really crowded marketplace right now when it comes to trainers and shooting coaches. Like, how do you, as somebody who's trying to do what you're doing, how do you separate yourself from the crowd?
Um, my advice would be to chase doing what you love. Um, I didn't set out on this course with any aspirations. I was hoping to find a fun way to make a few $100s more a month while working my full-time job. That was my big aspiration, and I did enjoy it. And so I enjoyed it enough that I was willing to work really hard to get good at it, with, again, no expectations of what was going to come next. I never thought that I was going to work in the NBA. Even the day before I got my first NBA phone call, I didn't think it was going to be uh, possible. And then how do you navigate this crowded landscape? You've got to number one, be really good. And how do you know you're good? The players actually get better. Uh, One of the best pieces of advice that I got from my mentor was, it's always your fault. That you don't ever get to say, the player just didn't get it. No, it's on you to help them get it. And so making sure that I held myself accountable to, the player actually has to improve. And then stepping back at times and looking at the landscape and just say, where are the holes? Where is too crowded? And where are the holes in the market that actually interest me and actually fit my skill set? and trusting your gut. Like, just in the last 5 years, I've started to trust my gut around doing some things that I thought were important. And that would be around shot metrics and science of skill acquisition. And just yesterday, an article came out in The Athletic about the CLA, the constraint-led approach, and how it's kind of taking over the NBA and professional sports to a certain degree, but sort of in a new wave, like a new idea. And it's something that I've been learning about for 5 years, because I thought it was important based on the people that I was talking to, and I invested my time to be towards the forefront of this when other people weren't doing it. And same thing with shot metrics. I got plenty of people in the NBA that think I'm bananas for worrying about my nerd stuff. And I just think it's important, and I'm trusting myself, and I'm starting to now see the evidence that, yeah, it's going to take a little time, but I'm going to be right. And so take time to step back and look at the landscape every once in a while and trust what you think is important moving forward.
What I heard is that I should record the flashiest clickbaity drills possible and put it on Instagram, and that's how I'm going to separate myself. That's what you said, right?
Yeah. And if you want to work at the NBA level, you should absolutely record skits for your, like, that'll be a great way to show your professionalism. Is yeah. Anyways,
No,
my grumpy old man
I
moment.
love
I'm
it.
sorry for that. If I offended anybody that does skits within their social media, I can't scroll past them fast enough.
Dave, no, listen, awesome advice, awesome perspective, and that's some parts of your story that I didn't know, and I feel like we've talked about a litany of things over the years. So I appreciate the insight and thank you for sharing. Let's take one more break, and then we're going to come back with hammer action.
Most players don't miss shots because of lack of effort. They miss because of specific habits or motor patterns that are holding them back. And that's why I created my shot development systems. Each system is a fluid progression of drills designed to improve one of the 3 most common shooting issues. Consistency and balance helps players build a stable base and reduce lower body habits that can cause inconsistency. Fluidity and arc helps players explore a more functional ball path and creates improved arc. And pure release highlights habits of hand placement, release, and guide hand interference. Each program is video-based with more than 50 detailed videos, over 2 hours of teaching organized in clear phases with guidance on how and when to progress. Players get the structure they need to actually improve, not just hope. And for coaches, you can bundle all 3 systems to save and start building your own complete shooting development plan with drills and progressions you can trust. These are the same principles I've taught to NBA teams, NCAA programs, and youth organizations all around the world, and now they're available to you. Go to CoachDaveLove.com/store and get started today.
Dave, it's time for hammer action. This is the part of the episode where we hammer home an actionable item from today's episode. And I have a question for you. Normally, we let you select hammer action. I have a question for you. So if I'm a college coach and I'm working with my guys on my shooting, like, how much variability should I be adding in our training when it comes to dip versus no dip? Should I be encouraging, okay, take 4 shots with no dip, take 2 shots with a shorter dip? Like, does adding variability in this training lead to more adaptable shooters, or is this just sort of more noise?
I think it would, especially for the better shooters. And this would be a great example of where I would start to use differential learning a little bit more. And so if you're just in a one-on-one situation or an unguarded practice situation, then it guide their exploration around, okay, dip the ball as much as you realistically can. Okay. But the rule is you can't come up short here. Like, we've got to get the ball to the rim. Dip the ball as much as you realistically can. Okay. On the next one, dip the ball as little as you realistically can. Okay. Now give me somewhere in the middle. Okay. Give me a little bit more than you normally would, a little bit bigger of a dip than you would. Give me a little bit less than you would. Give me a lot less, and sort of guide that exploration. And then if you've got the opportunity for a defender, then use the defender to kind of create that situation where it's like, just tell the defender, I want you to close out and I want you to contest every single shot. Bobby, the shooter, you're not allowed to pump fake. You've got to get the shot off. So it's either you get it off or it gets blocked. You're not allowed to not shoot it. Defender, Jimmy, I want you to vary the amount, like the speed of your closeout and the distance of your closeout. Sometimes hang back, let him get the shot off. Sometimes go really early and try and block it, to the point, like actually do block it, and then everywhere in between, and then guide, and then use different passes as well. Like sometimes pass it down around their waist where it will be very natural to, the ball's already down there. Sometimes pass it to their forehead, and sometimes pass it to their forehead where they need to get it off quickly and you're kind of helping them. And then sometimes pass it at their waist when they need to get it off quickly and you're working against them. And like just guide that exploration. And then as the coach, you need to be figuring out in what way are they outside of the sandbox, and can I constrain this drill in some way to nudge them back towards the middle of the sandbox.
When you say outside the sandbox, that's just straight up a solution that's not going to work for them?
Yeah, exactly. And go check out, I got to remember to put this blog in the show notes as well, the Sandbox. If I forget and it's not in the show notes, then just go Google Coach Dave Love Sandbox, and it'll be probably the first thing that comes up.
I can see the Twitter headline now. Coach has catch-all answer for the dip. It depends. Like, we really killed it today. This is great. Dave, really appreciate your time as always. I always love learning and hanging out with you. If the people have some questions for you, where can they find you?
Submit your question to podcast@coachdavelove.com via email. Record a voice note and just say, hey, Dave, this is Jim from Delaware. And I've always wondered, blah, 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 blah. Ask your question. And email us that voice note so that we can play it on the podcast. And sometimes we're going to have one question per podcast. I foresee a day where we might have a podcast of questions. And so that'll be a great way. You can also find me on formerly Twitter and Instagram @Coach Dave Love, or subscribe to my newsletter, CoachDaveLove.com.
Awesome. And I am Matt Robertson. You can find me on LinkedIn or on Twitter at Coach Matty Rob. Thank you for joining. Please rate, review, subscribe. Appreciate you sticking with us till the end, and see us next week.
You've been listening to the Coach Dave Love podcast. For more insights, make sure to sign up for my free shooting newsletter and access exclusive resources at CoachDaveLove.com.